so lesson 2 is called GCF and LCM. So what does GCF stand for? Greatest common factor. So we've heard it before. And LCM stands for least common multiple. Yeah. So those are some words you're going to have to know: GCF, LCM, and a prime number. You're going to have to know what a prime number is when we do this lesson. So a prime number is divisible by 1 and itself only. Okay, so what are some prime numbers? What is the first prime number, if you start counting, the first prime number we get to? 1 is actually not a prime number because it's just 1. So what's the next prime number? 2. 2 is a prime. You can only divide 2 by 2 and 1. 3 is prime. You can only divide 3 by 3 and 1. What about 4? No, because it's 4 times 1 or 2 times 2, right? 5. Did you know that there's never ever going to be another even one? Does that make sense? 6 is not, 8. There's no other even numbers ever. So 2 is going to be the only one that's even. So the next odd would be 7. What about 9? Nope, because it's got 3. 11. That's prime. 13. That's prime. 15. Nope. 17. 19. 23. Okay, so that's what prime means. Probably in this lesson you won't see anything past 11, I would say. Okay, so when we talked about factors and multiples, what are factors, what are multiples? So when I say what are multiples of 20, I'd be talking about 20. 40, 60, 80. Those are multiples. Because 20 times 1, 20 times 2, 20 times 3. And when I talk about factors, that is what multiplies to get that. So 1 and 20 are factors. 20 is also divisible by 2 and by a 10. And it's also divisible by 4 and 5. So those are all the factors. Okay, so this is how we start. So we're going to try to find the LCM and the GCF for 35 and 49. So what I want to do as my first step is I want to get them into their prime factors. So 35 is divisible by, I'm going to go through my list, not 2, not 3, 5. It's divisible by 5. That's the first one it's divisible by. 5 times 7. And then it's done. 5 is prime, 7 is prime, so we're done. 49. So I'm going to go through my checklist. 49 is not divisible by 2, not divisible by 3, not by 5, 7 times 7. Okay, so GCF. What do they each have in common? They both have a 7. So that is my greatest common factor. They both are divisible by 7. So what is the lowest common multiple or least common multiple? I'm going to take this 7 that overlapped, and then I'm going to times it by the extra 5 here and the extra 7 there. So the 7 that overlapped, and then the leftover 5, the leftover 7. So when you're talking about numbers, 245 is the first number you would get to that is, so there's that, it's divisible by 35, and 245 is divisible by 49. That's the first number you would ever find that you can divide both by. Okay, and that's the process. Just a question here, when I was doing my checks, do you understand how to tell if a number is divisible by 2? So if it's divisible by 2, whatever it ends in has to be even, right? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, like that. Do we know how to tell if a number is divisible by 3? When you look at a number, how do you know if it's divisible by 3 or not? So 231, it's divisible by 3. How did I know that? Does anybody know the trick? A little bit of a trick. You can add its digits up. So if I go 2 plus 3 plus 1, that's 6. 6 is divisible by 3. This number is divisible by 3. So 201 is divisible by 3. Okay? So that's how you check if a number is divisible by 3. And do you know how to tell if a number is divisible by 5 by looking at any number in math? It has to end a 0 or 5. Okay, so those are some quick ways that I do that kind of work. Okay, here we go. Name 98 and 126. "98 is divisible by 2 because that's even, so I'm going to start there. 2 times 49. 49 is divisible by 7, so 7 times 7. So the prime factors are 2 times 7 times 7. "126 is divisible by 2 because it's even. 63. 63, not 2. Can you do the 3 check? Is it divisible by 3? Yes, because 6 plus 3 makes 9, so that should be divisible by 3. 3 times 21. 21, a 3, right? 3 times 7. So we ended up with the prime numbers 2 times 3 times 3 times 7. Okay, so how do I find the GCF? What do they all have in common? So I'm going to circle, they both have a 2 in them. They both have a 7 in them. And that's it. So the greatest common factor, they would both be divisible by 14. Can you see what I did there? I did 2 times 7. That's what I did to get that. And then the lowest common multiple is they both had a 14 in them. So I'm going to use 14. They both had 14 in them. Then everything else. So there's a 7 left over, a 3 left over, and another 3 left over. So everything that I didn't circle, I still have to multiply by. So 882 is the first number we run into where I could take 882 and divide it by 98. Okay, and here's my check. This should be divisible by 98, and 882 should be divisible by 126. And I should be able to divide 98 by 14. And I should be able to divide 126 by 14. Okay, that's what I'm doing. Okay, let's do one more. I have 2 more here, but I don't really want to do 2 more. Let's do one more. 120 and 616. So, divisible by 2, yes. 2 times 60. 60. Yep, that's divisible by 2. 2 times 30. Divisible by 2, yes. 2 times 15. 15 is 3 times 5. So altogether I have 2 times a 2 times a 2 times a 3 times a 5. Okay, 616, 2, yes. 308. 308 is even. So 154. 154 is even. So divide it by 2 again. 77. Can anybody think of what would multiply to 77? 7 and 11, yep. So 2, 2, 2, 7, 11. So that's called its prime factors. So what do they all have in common? Yep. Sorry, it should be divisible by what? Right off the hop? Yeah. Yes. You can do that. Did you get to the same as me?
No. I didn't.
If you do that, that's fine, but it should come to the same. That's why I always just kind of try to start at the 2 until I have the 2 done, the 3 till I have 3's done. But if you do it by 5, so 120 divided by 5 is 24. And then what did you do the 24 by? 2 probably, or 3?
Well, I didn't end up doing that.
Oh, okay, yeah. So then I could do 2 times 12. And then 12 is 2 times 6. And then that's 2 times 3. So do you see how I ended up with 2, 2, 2, 3, 5? Same thing. Yep. So yep, you can do that as well. Okay, so what do they all have in common? This one has a 2 and this one has a 2. This one has another 2 and another 2. There's a third 2, and then that's it. So what does that make together? If there's a 2 times a 2 times a 2, what's that value? Should get 8. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2, 8. So then the lowest common multiple would be that, which is 8, times, and then what else do you see there? I would still need to put the 3, 5, 7, and 11 in there. So we're going to have a pretty big number here. So 9,240 is the first number I found that I could divide them both by. And you can always do a check, right? So when you get that number, it should be divisible by 120. It should be divisible by 616. Okay, so let's flip. We're going to do this same process now, but this time I put 3 numbers in there. Okay, so 60, 84, and 44. We have 3 digits. So 60, I'm going to start with a 2. 30, a 2. 'So do we have the same when you came to the bottom? 2 times 2 times 3 and 5. Okay, 84, 2 I'm going to start with because it's even. So 42, even. 21, 21, 44 is divisible by 2. 22 is divisible by 2. Okay, so GCF is done in the exact same way. What do they all have in common? They all have to have it. So I can say that they all have a 2. They all have a second 2. That's it, right? But they all have to have it. So they're all divisible by 4. Okay, now this is the one that gets a little bit different than doing with 2 numbers. So they all had a 4, so that's what we did, but here's where it switches. We always did the leftovers. Okay, so we're gonna add a stage here. So this was what they all had in common. Now we're going to add what 2 of them have in common and then the leftovers. Okay, so we have this middle step added in. So do 2 of them have something in common? There's a 3 in those two numbers. Then the singles are 5, 7, and 11. So what do they all have in common? What do two things have in common times singles? Okay, so remember the number that you find there is a number you can divide by 60, a number that you can divide by 84, and by 44. Okay, last example of the day, and then you can work. I'm gonna pause my talking and let you do all these prime factors on your own. Okay, when you're done, you can check my work and see if we match. And I finished out the LCM with all the doubles and the singles, right?